Today, I want to explore with you a little bit more about freedom, authenticity, compromise, and relationships. So basically, the problem that we run into in relationships is that we're trying to figure out how to be intimately connected with another person and to flow with that other person, and yet at the same time, we also need to be ourselves. So now we're dealing with a situation where there's two wills. And how do we flow when there's two separate wills? How do we flow as one when there's two separate wills? So there's a lot that goes into this. But the bottom line is that in order to be happy, we have to be able to be ourselves. We have to be able to be our true selves. Okay, so this is very interesting and deep topic. The first question is, what is your true self? Because in and of yourself, you're going to have a range of whether you're actually being authentic in and of yourself, without setting aside for a moment the pressures of the relationship. Or the questions that your partner can bring to the table on this issue. So what is the true self, right? Now, we grow up learning to think of ourselves as, we grow up learning to think from a place that's actually disconnected from our spiritual heart. And that is not a bad thing in the sense that when we're young, we have to learn that art anyway of how to connect deeply inside. The problem is that art is not being taught in our society. And in fact, our society is built on a state of awareness that is separate from that interconnection. So we end up learning from our environment, a separate from the heart way of looking at reality. And this is huge because when there's love in the mind, the world looks a certain way. And when there is not love in the mind, the world looks a completely different way. So when we grow up developing an idea about ourself and who we are without the awareness of love in the center of our being, that self-image that we think is self, and that when we act that self-image out, we think we're being authentic. But that self-image is very different than what we would know about ourselves if we felt love. For instance, when we don't feel our inner connection to love, we don't feel a sense of natural self-worth or inherent self-worth. So we usually then develop habits or behavioral patterns to try to get our self-worth validated with other people around us, whoever it is that we want the approval of. But meanwhile, even when we get their approval, we still have this feeling of something's missing inside, and I feel weak inside, and I feel somehow like I'm not lovable, inherently lovable inside. So that kind of haunts us. So we really need to take a look at what is the self that we are trying to be authentic with. So if our sense of self is, sorry, I got a little bit derailed. Hang on a second. So if the sense of self that we're trying to be authentic with is this ego library sense of self, this self-image that, for instance, doesn't feel a clear self-worth or a natural sense of self-worth, then that sense of self, when it's authentic, is trying to secure love from outside. And this is the underlying cause of control dynamics. I need love from outside, therefore I need certain conditions to be in place in order for me to feel okay. And then that becomes, I need you to do things for me so that I can feel okay. Otherwise, I feel hurt. Well, why do you feel hurt if somebody doesn't fit your picture? That is a controlling dynamic, but we can't help it when we think that self is this ego sense of self that we developed thinking, interacting, and believing without the awareness of love in our center. So it's very essential that when we're looking to find balance and intimate connection in our life, that we start with ourselves. We start with deepening, locating and deepening our inner connection muscles to connect with divine love in our center. Now, what is freedom? Okay, so we talked about authenticity, and authenticity is really when you are expressing the truth of who you are, when you are connected with divine love, because your connection with divine love is part of the truth of who you are. When you are not connected with divine love, you are not experiencing yourself in a true fashion. You're experiencing a lie, in a sense. The lie that you are not lovable, the lie that love is not your original source. Okay? The truth is that love is your original source. So in order to be authentic, we really need to be connected to love in our center. Otherwise, we don't even know who the authentic self is. So that's the first part. Freedom. Freedom to do what, right? So if we are feeling like we need to control somebody else, like we need to control our circumstances to make ourselves feel good, that is not freedom to begin with. We are in a compromised state. So usually when people are talking about compromise in relationships, they are talking about compromise at the level of trying to agree on a situation, or trying to agree on how you're going to go about some experience, some, I don't know, vacation, travel, or whatever, or what you're going to have for dinner, or how you're going to run the household. These are all, I'm going to call them material things. I'm not saying that it's materialistic. I'm just saying it's about how we conduct our life in this physical plane. So that's usually the level of compromise that people are thinking about, because when we're operating from our ego self, we are actually thinking usually only in terms of our material circumstances, because that is where we get our joy from. That's where we get our sense of love from, because the ego awareness of self doesn't have that inherently. But that is flawed, and that is mistaken, because we do have love inherently, and we do have joy as a natural consequence of our inner relationship with love. So what is the freedom that we are looking for when we are thinking about freedom as compared with compromise when it comes to relationships? Are we looking for the freedom to act out from our ego nature, to make us let us do the things that we feel like we have the emotional conviction to do, so that it's like our ego is throwing a tantrum. I want to do this because this is going to make me feel good, right? And so maybe that's the kind of freedom that we're looking for. And if that's the case, that's not really freedom at all. That's bondage to programming. That's bondage to ego programming. So the freedom that we really need is the freedom to listen inside to our core, to our alignment with love, and to act, to carry out whatever action, whatever behavior, whatever words, whatever non-words feel natural in alignment with our core connection with love. That is absolutely essential, and that we cannot compromise on if we're going to be happy, and if we're going to be able to be in intimate connection with another person. So this is the basis of holy relationship, as compared with ego relationships. Ego relationship is all about two people trying to figure out how they can make their egos happy with each other. And I hope that doesn't sound too callous. I will say that people are multidimensional, and it only takes a second to drop out of the ego and be connected with your feeling sense and your intuitive feeling sense, rather than your emotions. I meant connected with your intuitive feeling sense. It only takes a second to be connected with your heart, if you know what you're looking for, or even if you just relax, you can end up there accidentally. And it only takes a second to switch back to your ego. So I am speaking in generalities about mental conditions or awareness conditions, not about people. Now, people who spend all their time in ego awareness, yes, I could be talking about them, right? But usually any spiritually inclined person has a variety of states of awareness that they are experiencing at any given time. So, and you have your variety and your partner has their variety. So it makes it a very rich and interesting combination. So what we can't compromise on is our connection with love inside, and our integrity to allow our actions and self-expression to arise, to be inspired by that inner connection. So when we're interacting with our partner, the biggest struggle that I've observed is that we have our whole subconscious library of programming of what all the hoops that we thought we should jump through to try to earn love from the people that matter to us. And so when we're in a love partnership, a romantic relationship, that's the most challenging for us to walk in the freedom of authenticity without being harried inside by our subconscious programming, because when we are intimately involved with someone, it's the closest, the most immediate. I mean, there's energetic connection. It's really deep. So the stakes feel really high, and it can make it really hard when things come up to not go to a place of fear that I can't say that because my partner, that's going to upset my partner, or I better do this thing because that will make my partner happy or keep them off my back, or whatever it is, the thoughts that may run through one's mind. But even though we think that we make these concessions to keep the relationship healthy, but we're not keeping the relationship healthy, we're keeping the relationship comfortable. And comfortable is, comfortable, moving from fear in order to maintain comfort actually just maintains an image of calm, but it degrades intimacy, in fact, because intimacy, actually, the most intimate that you can be with your partner is to let them see the you that is unfolding in the now, in the unknown, from your inner connection with love. That's the most intimate that you can be with somebody. So when you're in a fear state, that inner connection gets shut down, and you're trying to fit in with some image of how things should be. And that's acting, that's performance. And performance is essentially the opposite of intimacy. I mean, you can't have real intimacy of your soul with another soul when you're in a performance state. So it's tough, but it's really important. If you would find it helpful, I actually have a guide of 5 things that you can do. Let me see, what do I call it? 5 ways to not compromise and cultivate connection at the same time, because this is one of the most challenging things when we're trying to grow and improve the quality of communication and connection in our relationship, and trying to grow out of fear patterns that keep tripping us up. So if you would like a copy of that guide for free, you can connect with me, message me the word free. You can message me on Instagram, you can message me on Facebook, and you'll find the links down below. Have a great day.